calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, May 24th, 2023, and our very, very long agenda today. Hopefully, we won't be too late. Okay, so let's start with roll call.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll go ahead and take roll call. Chair Grumbine.
Present.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dorden.
Here.
Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Here.
Commissioner Lundvik.
Here.
Commissioner McClure.
Here.
And then Vice Chair House is absent and Commissioner Uli is absent. We have quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so on to public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on the agenda for public discussion. So, anyone, let's see.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. We have Ms. Sheila Lodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and commission members. I'm here seeking fair play for Bernard and Irene Hoffman. I sent you a number of documents about them. I hope you had a chance to read them. And I have a couple of things to add. Some of you know that I have written a book that's a history of urban planning in Santa Barbara. And when I began my research for it, I thought, like most people, that Pearl Chase was responsible for Santa Barbara's iconic architecture. But the more research I did, the more I've learned that that was not the case, that it was Bernard Hoffman, inspired by his wife, Irene, who was the force that successfully pushed for unified Spanish colonial revival style in Santa Barbara. I knew that local historian Sherry Ray McKinney was writing a full-length biography of Chase, and I sent her the draft asking her to review it to make sure I hadn't made any errors about Miss Chase. She had no corrections to make. The Trust for Historic Preservation, a number of years ago, I had a DVD produced about Pearl Chase called My Friends Call Me Miss Chase. It includes these lines. The Hoffmans later moved back to their home in Massachusetts, but by then, Hoffman's, vision of a new Santa Barbara had a momentum that would not be stopped. Even a video about Pearl Chase gives him the credit for it. And I hope you will all remember that and give credit to where it is due. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any more speaker slips. If anyone joining virtually would like to speak on general business, please raise your hand and we can call on you. Not seeing any raised hands. We did receive written correspondence from Kevin Boss, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. And with that, I'll hand it back. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And a shout out to Bernard and Irene. Officially. Okay, and I actually along the public comments line, because it was addressed to everyone as well, it was about a State Street parklet. And so we're just as a note to the public, we are planning on having a State Street discussion, which will touch on some of this stuff. And so and we're trying to agendize it, and maybe we can fold into that maybe 4 weeks out from today.
Yeah, the discussion is agendized for June 7th at this time.
Yeah, and that's what I also wanted to push out because I'll be on vacation that day. So
right.
it'll be, and I was one that requested it. So, but if we can at least agendize it for 4 weeks out, and we can let the public know as well that that's the perfect time to be discussing all these things as well, where we are officially doing it. So, okay. On to, we'll close public comment, and on to approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission, May 10th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
I would move for approval of the minutes of May 10.
All right.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Under discussion, any edits, changes, anything? Looks good.
These minutes are almost perfect.
What would make them perfect?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I
Yes.
do have a question in terms
Okay.
of it.
Thank you,
So,
Commissioner Drury.
Under the motion, items 6 and 7, I think the windows are sort of anonymous. I think we need to
Okay.
make sure we know which windows.
Study adding
They're the ones
awnings.
they're the ones in that loggia and that.
No, sorry, 6 and 7. Study adding awnings to add color
No,
to
no,
the.
no, 7 and 8, sorry.
Oh, sorry, okay. All right, the windows and doors should have divided lights. I think that's a general statement. Generally speaking, the windows and doors should have divided light, should have muntins. And then study if the windows should be operable windows. Okay,
Well, I think we were talking specifically about that central hinge.
That's what I recall. It was that.
There's a big discussion about the
The
windows,
center
where they're
section
placed.
where you would go through, and we talked about whether the windows could be operable in that area. Both, there were some large square windows that were the upper, the volume space, and then there was the bridge that had doors, and we talked about the doors and the windows in both those spots.
Yes, that's my
okay.
recollection.
And I was not there, and I don't think I've watched the video yet, so I'd have to double check. So I'm gonna have to rely on you guys to,
But is this item 7 inconsistent with what our discussion?
It's inconsistent only that it's generalized. It should
Well,
be
but-
specific.
But I think we want all the windows and doors to be considered.
I didn't recall
correct.
that.
Mr. Chair?
although I think we should be sticking to whatever in particular was being discussed. We may afterwards think that it should be all of them, but I don't know what was discussed, so.
Mr. Chair, if I could interject, I believe the discussion was that there were windows on one of the levels that were not divided light, and the commission discussed that they wanted all of the windows to have muntins. So we could maybe clarify and say that the windows and doors should have divided lights to match the windows on the other levels, or what would,
Or including the hinge, because that was really what started this whole discussion.
including the central hinge. So maybe the windows and doors should have divided lights, including the central hinge?
Yes.
Okay.
And then Chair Grumbine, and then the operable was the hinge part.
Okay,
They're both related to the same part of the building.
gotcha. Okay, that sounds good. Sounds like that will cover it then. All right, any other edits?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Now, it was a Mary Poppins minutes, it was practically perfect in every way, but you found the one. Okay, in that case, we have a motion and a second, and edits. Let's have a roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes?
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes?
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Abstain.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we are on to item, C, approval of the consent calendar for May 24th, 2023. So, to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 1, Oak Park at 638 West Junipero Street, received project design approval and final approval. Item B, 2151 Mission Ridge Road, received project design approval and final approval. Item C, 431 East Valerio Street, number B, received project design approval and final approval. And item D, 1715 Laguna Street, received, or was continued indefinitely with the comments that the proposal is not acceptable as submitted because it does not conform to the guidelines in the Secretary of Interior standards, and some suggestions for how to bring that project into conformance with those guidelines and interior standards.
All right, and thank you, Commissioner McClure, for his, with manning that, and then I as well substituted for Vice Chair House, so. All right, any questions? Or, yeah, we need a motion, that's
I'll
true.
move to approve the consent.
Second?
All right, motion by Commissioner Ensberg, second by Commissioner Drury. Under discussion, any questions, discussion? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes?
Commissioner Butler, Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thank you. All right, we are on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. All right, do we have any announcements?
I just have one announcement that we will be organizing and scheduling a designation subcommittee for mid-July. We'll receive all the Mills Act contract applications at the end of June, and then the next step is for them to be presented to the designation subcommittee for their recommendations to the full board. And we'll also discuss some other designation procedures at that time.
Great.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Other announcements, etc.? All right. Okay, let's go on to item E, subcommittee reports. Let's see, do we have any subcommittee reports?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Lendick.
regarding State Street Advisory Committee, I attended a workshop Monday, and it was mainly dealing with what it takes to economically have a pedestrian mall or a promenade be successful. There were several local experts, developers, and realtors there who gave us a good indication of what's happening in Santa Barbara. And there were, of course, MIG, the planner, was there with an economic specialist as well. I don't know that we were left with any pearls of wisdom regarding how Santa Barbara is going to be successful from the standpoint of its downtown. We certainly talked about the problems it has, and today we're going to see a number of draft designs which will be presented to us at 3:30 at the Faulkner Gallery. And we will, at some point, break up into working groups and discuss them, tear them apart, and make comments to the whole group later on. At least that's been the format in the past. So we'll see at least what's on the minds of the planners today when they present us some options.
And then along that line, just for clarity, so we can't all go, because that would be a Brown Act violation, or we can all go but not talk to each other.
Yeah, I think technically for the Brown Act, you are allowed to attend these types of public hearings and work groups. It would just be you wouldn't be able to discuss any HLC business with each other at the meeting. But those who are on the State Street Advisory Committee or involved in it in some way are encouraged to attend.
Yeah, I think it would be important there was many people there from this committee as can be, and maybe they want to not participate in the work sessions where the advisory committee is discussing things, because that could be prejudicial, I suppose, in a way. But I think it'd be wise to be there, not talk to each other, don't sit next to each other, so on and so forth.
Don't even look at each other.
What about dinner?
They provided bottled water and energy bars.
Okay, I guess that's important.
For you, it would be.
And we can't all eat the same kind of energy bar. All right. Okay, so anything more? Thank you very much, Commissioner Lenvik. Anything more, and Commissioner Ensberg as well, for your participation in these things?
Chair Grumbine?
Yeah.
I'm not on that committee. I'm
Yeah,
not on the
you're-
SSAC, but I was present at the, on Monday, I was present, and I will be there tonight, too. But I was going to also add, I think we got a schedule, did we not, for when the MIG is going to be presenting to this group, they're now going to be reaching out, I think, or did we get that yet? Or maybe I'm thinking of the airport. I think I'm thinking of the airport.
There,
The airport is coming to us, and they have scheduled a date, and I don't recall what that date
Yes,
was.
so the airport is, updates on the airport revitalization are scheduled to appear before the HLC on the June 7th hearing.
June 7th, okay.
and I know that there's been some moving targets here, but in terms of the dates and that over the overall schedule for MIG. But is there a little? Are we going to be seeing the same stuff we're seeing today? Are we going to be having it presented to us? Is there going to be a revision version of it, or what's the and when should all this? When should we be expecting this to be coming before us?
I don't have any information on that at this time. I can talk
Okay.
to the planners involved in Ellen and get back
Yeah.
to you with an update.
Okay, great, thanks. Because I know originally it was supposed to be like April. We were supposed to have it presented to us the first round, but I know that schedules shift. So, okay.
Oh, and one other thing, Chair Grumbine, if I could, two things. The objective design development standards, I did hear that those were going to be moving forward sometime soon, that they'll be, the work group will be getting together, and there'll be progress on that.
Okay.
And then I had one other thing. I don't know if it's appropriate to bring this up now, but I did send an email to Heidi and also to Ellen about, and tell me if this is not good to talk about now, but I was suggesting that when we have our discussions and we have, like one commissioner thinks this and another commissioner thinks that, I was suggesting that perhaps we could take a moment and discuss it amongst ourselves so that we could perhaps come to an agreement and have one, either vote on it, do a straw vote, so that we're not giving two pieces of information to the applicant, and then they're not sure, well, what do we do? Because two people said this and one other person said that. If there was a way we could, work that out amongst ourselves before we move forward. Anyway, just
Yeah,
a suggestion.
and maybe we can talk about it and even agendize it a little bit, or I don't know if it's just a matter of a discussion of do we have to agendize it in terms of what our protocol is. I do know that sometimes the reason to say that is because it shows that it's not unified, and sometimes some of the trouble we have is if we give a pretty unified view of something, and the applicant goes after that and goes down that road, but then it ends up not working out design-wise or not a good thing, and then they come to back out of it, it's been like, okay, so the commission's telling you to do this. Whereas if you show the not uniformity of the commission, they also, and we can also recognize and sort of change minds a bit or have a continued discussion. It allows it to kind of be a continued discussion because there's not consensus in a clear way, which sometimes is good and sometimes is bad. So that's just sort of some of the reasons I can see benefits for it going both ways. But if there is something that we want to come up with as a sort of standard practice, that is not a bad idea.
It does allow for some sort of flexibility. It shows that there's openness. But anyway, I had a couple of people ask me about that.
Gotcha.
Well, I agree with you, Mr. Chair. I think that to a degree, a certain degree of I won't call it conflict, but disagreement among the commission is valuable to be heard by the applicant. It's not like you're voting on his project. We're giving him ideas. And I think we've got to be real careful that he doesn't walk out of here thinking, well, I got the votes or whatever. I think too often we involve ourselves in the design as opposed to critiquing and evaluating the design. And I think we've got to be careful about that in the future, is that we don't say, if you come back to us with, bigger windows, you got an approval. I mean, I just am hesitant to want to get involved in giving design direction on a project.
And pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. If this is merely like a suggestion for for the chair to handle procedure moving forward, that's fine to bring up at this time, but if we're getting into a discussion, that
Yeah.
needs to be agendized,
Okay,
so.
that sounds good.
Um,
Well, why
let me
don't
know
we
if
do a
you-
little
you
mini
think this
agenda
needs
for
to
it?
be-
It shouldn't take too long, but maybe a 5 or 10 minute with Ms. Kukunda. So-
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, so any other subcommittee reports or anything else? Okay. All right, let's go on to our one and only item today. All right, so it is item 1. This is a continued item, project design approval, for project design approval and final approval. It's 1713 Laswen Road. And this is a historic structure of merit, constructed in 1903 in the American Colonial Revival style and located in the Hillside Design District. The project consists of a renovation to the existing historic residence, including demolition of existing garage and workshop to replace with a new garage and workshop with a 256 square foot gym below. The project includes 2 upper floor additions comprised of a 126 square foot mechanical room and a 156 square foot primary bath, reopening a deck at the exterior of the residence, window and door replacements, a new elevator, and an interior remodel. The proposed total of 4,100 square feet on a 13,600 square foot lot is 99% of the maximum required floor to lot area ratio. On May 11th, 2023, the Planning Commission approved an interior setback modification and maximum floor area modification. So they're requesting, A, requesting acceptance of a memo to the Secretary of Interior Standards prepared by the city architectural historian Nicole Hernandez, which concludes the proposed project meets the Secretary of Interior Standards for rehabilitation. Therefore, project impacts on significant historic resources would be less than significant, Class 3. And B, project design approval and final approval are requested. Project compatibility findings and major alteration findings are required. The project was last reviewed on February 15th, 2023. All right, so with that, welcome. And if you can introduce yourselves for the record.
I'm Adam Graham, the owner.
I'm Risa Han, the drafter.
Okay, thank you. And then to staff, do we have?
Thank you, Chair Graham, and I'll keep my comments pretty brief. So as it was noted in the project description, this project was recently reviewed by the Planning Commission for 2 modifications, one for an interior setback encroachment. If you'll recall, as part of this project, they're demolishing the existing garage and workshop, which are currently non-conforming. One point of the garage is I believe 9 inches from the property line, and now it's going to be pushed back, so the closest point is roughly 4 feet from the property line. The other modification was for the floor area being requested. So as included in the project description, the net floor area is 4,163 square feet for 99% of the maximum required. And yeah, they're here today for project design approval on the design. If you have any questions, I'll be here.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so welcome. Actually, I'll read the minutes from last time here. Okay, so, yeah, if we could zoom in there. All right, continue. This was to continue indefinitely to the Planning Commission with a return to full commission with the following comments. 1, the commission thanks the owner for proposing a project that offers a beautiful way to adding to and taking care of historic resources, or beautiful way of adding to. 2, the massing and break of the building is appropriate for the historic resource and as a design. 3, the commission does not require story poles. 4, the commission requests the applicant explore a waiver if feasible to allow the narrowing of the garage to have a more appropriate historical aesthetic and proportions and to allow a larger setback from the adjacent neighbor's property line. 5, simplify and lower the overall height of the garage, including study of the gable design to make the original house continue to be more prominent. 6, study an overall simplification to support the main historic structure and make it more consistent with the Secretary of Interior Standards to be subservient and more clearly differentiated from the original house. And then 7, the commission is supportive of the modification requests. All right, so with that, welcome. If you can go through your presentation, show us what has changed since last time, how you've addressed those comments, and then because it's for final as well, make sure to go through the details and all the other requirements for that.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Commission, for the past support of the project. Like to provide the responses to the requests specifically, and then we prepared a couple of sheets of similar style architecture with jerkin head use and colonial revival style, and within about a mile radius of the house. So number 4, the request to explore the waiver was successful. I did meet with Mr. Curtis, my neighbor, and actually a delightful man, and he'll make a great neighbor. And he was happy to hear about transportation's, I guess, acceptance of the waiver to reduce the interior of the garage, which does pull the garage further from the property line. And the narrower footprint also corresponds with an overall ridge height reduction. So the mass of the garage has been reduced, which makes me happy. I would have put that in the design originally, but having done this many times in the past, I realize we abide by the rules for our 20-foot interior garages.
And sorry, how much was it, the at shift?
We went from 1.9 to the corner, and by pulling it back from the street to sit within the front yard setback and reducing the width of the garage and losing about 2 feet from the library, there you go. We're now 4 foot 8.5 inches from the property line.
Okay, thanks.
If it was reduced any more, one of the best rooms in the house, which is a little library that sits just under that roof projection line heading there, would be basically useless. So I did not want to take away from the library. Number 5, simplify the overall height of the garage and include the study of the gable design to make the original house be more prominent. That was partially accomplished by reducing the width, which also brought the height down. We removed rear elevation, I guess you call them north elevation, a window grouping above the garage. Actually, Risa, could you show the backside of the, well, no, we can stay here, I'm sorry. There was a shed roof piece above the garage door, and the brick veneering on the garage were removed and replaced with plaster. So the original house's second story, or street first story floor, is veneered in brick, and I had wanted to do the same with just the very front portion of the garage. And that's now been taken back to plaster. So the garage face is much simpler, and then the back of the garage also, there was a sort of a clear story element in our last iteration, which has been removed as well. So there was sort of window groupings across the third floor, the second floor, and the bottom floor, and now the garage is just got the wood veneer, or sorry, the wood siding. So those are the changes. It's a little difficult to make the side view of the gambrel roof any simpler than just it is what it is. So I didn't think there was anything more I could do with those elevations. 6 was an overall project simplification to support the main house structure and differentiate it more clearly. The majority of the work that was done was in the garage, and I went back to my original sketches and elevation studies. Whenever I'm doing a project like this, there's a lot of sketching and elevation drawings that are produced. And comparing the jerkin head, or what I call a clipped gable, with the original, I guess, concept, we've got less of a massing. I think the house looks a bit softer. I was highly concerned, having done quite a bit of work in the neighborhood, that view corridors to all those neighbors are sort of essential to their way of life. And I wanted to minimize my impact. And in particular, if we look at the original elevation of the south of the house, it reminded me of a factory worker's lunchbox, and I really wanted to get away from that. That's what's out there now, and if we had photographs of it, it looks worse in person. Planning Commission went out, and we stood in the backyard and stared at this thing for a while, and I think everybody agreed it was pretty not attractive. So I realize it's a historic resource. That part of the house we can see in the upper left-hand corner is the resource, and the picture below it, at least in my opinion, is maybe not the resource that we're looking for. So I'm attempting to undo a lot of the oddball permitted work that was done in the house and some unpermitted work, and to bring it up to a slight degree with larger bathroom sizes, and hence I guess I call those the second story shoulder additions. And that's it. And then we've got, we brought in a bit of a supplemental as a comparison. So there is a home about 9 properties down on the same side of the street on Dover that has got a lot of the same elements. Now, I was not aware of this house when I bought 1713 and started in on the design, and it has a lot of very similar architectural styles with these smaller, I realize it's not a gambrel-style roof, but it is definitely a colonial revival. It's very symmetrical. It has these really cool second-story, smaller additions of bathrooms. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. That's what I'd like to do as well. The railing detail is very similar to the railing detail I want to restore in my second-story deck. This house is got a bit larger of a footprint, but it's on a much larger lot. So they're not necessarily apples to apples. Yeah, there you can see the two from the top down. And it is a Mills Act. It's part of our, it's part of our inventory, which is neat. It's a very nice looking house. And then below that, we've got some other. These are all Santa Barbara, other than one house which is a great inspiration to me. But we've got other Jerkinhead use in arts and craftsman, some more Normandy style. There's a lot of different colonial revival styles. So these are like recent pictures of other homes in the neighborhood that have got both modified gambrels, Jerkinhead, the house in the lower right-hand corner. I wish that house was in Santa Barbara so we could all drive by and take a look, but it is very, very similar to what I would like to see my home turn into. And there is a bit of a, you can see that on the second story element, there's the Jerkinhead, the little clip gable. Anyway, I would love to have produced more pictures, but I think we sort of get the, kind of get the gist of the use of the Jerkinhead in Santa Barbara. And that's it.
Okay, that conclude. All right, so if that concludes your presentation, we'll go to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item can please come forward.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I currently do not have any speaker slips, so turning to virtual public comment. If there is anyone participating virtually who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we can call on you. Not seeing any raised hands, and I still do not have speaker slips. We did not receive any written correspondence, so back to the commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, to the commission for questions.
I have a question.
Sure, Commissioner Longfellow.
That last house you'd shown, I guess Menlo Park, one of the things that really created a lot of interest in that house is the colors they've chosen. And have you elected to do something other than all white?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, we have. Can you pull up the color board?
And actually along those lines, color, materials, and, because this is for final as well, lighting, any of those light fixtures, if you are including those, any details, doors and windows.
Yeah, unfortunately, the only of the colors that are presented, the only, Risa, let's move over to the shutter color. Like the shutter color to be a little more black in the blue. That looks a bit
like old blue jeans.
Yeah, that looks a bit plastic in the way it's represented. But the that Ben Moore color of old blue jeans, I think is really nice, and it, especially on the all-day, everyday shaded front elevation of the house. I would like the shutters to not look ink black, because at the moment they look very dark. So I'd like to see a little bit of blue in the shutter trim. So will you pull back out a bit so we can see the complete color palette? I would like to really brighten up the casing around windows and doors. So the lightest of the colors would be that casing. The second story wood cladding, though, I think if it was power washed, the color's not so bad, and I don't want to deviate. And that appears to be from when we had to repair some of the windows when we first bought it. So that second story color, this Collingwood 5 or 859, does appear to be an original color, and I think it would look nice set off with the white trim and the more blue shutters. The shutters right now are blackish purple, for lack of a better.
But you'd be painting the siding, the plaster siding, a lighter color?
Currently now it's an off-white.
Slide over a little more.
Yeah. Currently it's an off-white. And the bricks have been painted over, but they were a white clay brick originally, but they've been painted over as a white. So I'd like to actually strip the paint off, because the original bricks, other than some retucking, are in immaculate condition. It's just a shame. I actually coincidentally spoke with Mr. Gao this morning, who owned the house for 41 years. And he told me that he had recently gone through the interior of the house and was sad because all these brick elements and wood elements, both in the inside and the outside of the element, or inside and outside of the house, have been painted white by the prior owner. And he was describing what beautiful brickwork and interior mahogany. And I said, no, I'm going to try to bring all that back. So some of the colors are original. The shutter color, I'd like to see it a little lighter blue, and I'd like to have the window, again, the casing details have a bit more vibrancy to them, so they offset a bit.
I think it looks very good. I have no other questions.
Okay, other questions? Questions?
Chair Grumbine?
Yes, Commissioner Hasbrook.
Could we see you have the rendering, the elevation in the color, right? I think. And so what is the garage door and the front door color?
There we go. The garage door and the front door color, I thought would be in that same white. So the sashes, the windows, the muttons, the front door, the garage door surround, I thought in the white would be, not trying to be too fancy, it's not an old Victorian, but it looked like there was that kind of differentiation in the original paint scheme, and over time, it just sort of got painted the same off-white color.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon my interruption, just a reminder to the applicant to please make sure your mic is on. Thank you.
All right. Other questions? All right. And I don't have any. So let's roll into comments. Oh, actually, I do. I lied. Lights, like fixtures. You have fixed light fixtures on either side of the garage. Do you have a detail of those?
Currently, no. I was going to reuse the existing, there's a semi-recessed surface mount fixture in the entry that is somewhat nondescript and is high enough not to be a head scraper. And we just dropped in some lantern style, very simple metal frame, probably a seated glass. I would call it an old lantern style, but I hadn't gotten specific yet to the fixture. My goal with the house was really not to show off any exterior lighting at all. I don't think it needs it necessarily, but I know at every egress, every door, we're going to have a light.
Okay. And yeah, and for final, that'll be something that at least, even if it's coming back on consent, we'll need to have the specs for. So, Okay.
Can do.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner
May
Drury.
we see the west elevation? Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, so let's roll into comments. Who wants to dive in?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
I'll just say one thing. You went from that elevation, the one that's half exhibited, from kind of a mishmash. I mean, it looks like sort of an old tenement building with additions, and now it's turned into something completely coherent and really lovely. I much appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Other comments?
Just a quick comment that I'm very pleased to see the progress made on this, and I find it a very supportable project.
Great. Yeah, I think the lack of comments means that that's really good. You guys you did a very good job. So yeah, I think it's sounding like we have all support here. With the only, let's see, so spec-wise, I think you had all your materials and colors. Except for the lights, so they'll be having a light spec. Yeah, so I think that's about it. The only other comment I would make was on the front door. Maybe consider doing something different with the front door, because oftentimes with American Clean Revival, they had some pop to their front doors, and in it being like the one special door. So it might be worth looking and not just defaulting to white. It makes sense in the garage as sort of tying it all together, but the front door might be worth, and it's still supportable as white, but it might be worth taking a look at as a potential.
Chair Grumbine?
Commissioner Drury.
I agree with the comments that have been already stated. I agree about the door. My sense of it was I would love to see all of the doors be
Striped.
some kind of.
She
Well,
brings up a striped
I'm
awning
trying
quite often, so
to
that's
compromise a little bit, but anyway, I think no, that's fine. I love to talk about stripes.
Yeah, I know.
Anytime.
She embraces it. So.
So just for consideration, I really love the moon detail on the shutters is really cool.
Those are original.
Yeah, they're really great. So anyway, that would be, I think you've, really done a great job, and I would just agree with especially the front door, but I would also consider the other doors on the back side and the garage, if you were so inclined. And I also think that the light fixtures, maybe look at that, some of those other photographs of was it Menlo Park? Was it? And see what they had. But I think, the lights are always a really great opportunity for something special. And so I wouldn't necessarily think you want to make them go away, but, they can be a really nice accent piece, just like your copper, gutters and downspouts. So it's just another element that's really important. So just have a look at that. But I think you've done a great job, and thank you.
Yeah. And actually, can you zoom into that front porch? Actually, just
Can I make a comment on that?
yeah, sure. Because you're the only item today, so you get it.
Well, so at the moment, the purple-black shutters are somewhat mimicked in the purple-black front door. And unfortunately, from the street, you get no appreciation for those angled panel pieces and the inlay or the raised panel detail of the front door. It just looks like almost like a cave. So it doesn't show well in the picture because we've got everything, of course, in bright light. But that is it's a pretty dark part of the house, if not the darkest. More so in that it's inset a good 20 inches or so from the front wall of the house. So I did think that maybe brightening up the shutter colors might correspond with brightening up the front door, and kind of came to the conclusion that, well,
It might be too dark.
I won't see any of nobody is going to appreciate any of the details. We're just going back to we're just kind of going back to, it's just sort of an amorphous, dark entry with no, I think that the front door will be salvageable. It's in pretty bad shape, but I do have quite a, yeah, there you go. It's, yeah, like I said, it's hard to kind of picture any of the detail in the door unless you're really looking for it.
Yeah, and it may be that you can do a tone or tone on tone or, you know, a different tone off of it. But anyways, it's just a suggestion but I think that makes sense as to why you don't go dark with it, for sure. That's a
Mr.
good point.
Chair?
Yeah. Commissioner Dre.
I think in your palette, which is very subtle and beautifully arranged, I think one of those colors, maybe a tie-in with that elevation above, or something like that. You know, something just so you can still see what you need to see. It needs to be illuminated, I mean, with paint. But it's, yeah, that whoever would paint the door that color is beyond me, but why?
And you could see in this, sorry to cut you off, but that you could see in the if you power wash that, there's some actual, there's something to see in that second story woodwork. But in the picture, it looks like dirty white paint. But it's, anyway, I think the house could actually probably do a lot better for itself if it just was cleaned. But it's in significantly worse condition than just a power washing is going to help that house out. It's in structurally pretty bad shape, so we'll repaint and clean it up.
Great.
The shutters appear to be in good shape. I mean, they're not sagging. At least they don't appear sagging.
Shutters on the front side of the everything on the north elevation is intact.
Where there's no sun.
Yeah, everything on the back elevation is, sagging is a good word for it. There's shutters that have actually fallen off the building, so we're, the tale of two houses.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah, and
It's
there's,
beat up.
yeah, they've been replaced, and there's actually a shutter laying on the roof of that, anyway.
Yep. Just
say about awnings?
striped awning. I do want to also comment on the, if you can go back one last, and this will be my last comment, I promise, to the drawing, sorry, to your elevation drawing. And I was curious when you brought that photograph up also, if the columns really do have a double emphasis. Yeah, zoom in, if you can zoom into your, yeah, there you go. And you're showing the bottom swelling inward, right? Like the bulge and just the emphasis just in the middle of the column, which is an interesting thing. And then look at the picture; it looks like it actually does do that, which is very rare, but it does happen.
The draft person got it right.
Yeah, I mean, really, really well done.
A couple of things about the house, though. I believe the entry has been almost entirely replaced. If you look at the base detail, it's the columns could not have sat on the existing base detail from 1923 to present date. So I think the columns are a newer.
Later.
Yeah, the material and the columns don't appear to be original redwood or Doug fir. They appear to be a much different. So I would have loved to have seen photographs like the house down the street on Dover of the original and copied those. That would have been a real treat. But this is what we've got, and I don't think we'll ever know what the original columns look like, but these are hopefully.
Yeah, it looks like they may have been at least trying to reconstruct them.
That's my hope.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
I mean, it's rare, but it is done that way. So it was interesting to see. And good job drafting it. All right. Any other comments?
Yes,
Commissioner Ellsberg?
I just want to make being a color person, just one more pitch for the door. I totally get it, what you're talking about the detail on the door. The existing is quite dark, as you have said. That's probably about a 9, black being 10. But the color that you are proposing for the blue is probably more around maybe a 5 or 6, something like that. So it's quite a bit lighter, and you could even go maybe slightly. It's all about which actual color you select. But I think that accentuating the door and getting what you want, which is to accentuate the detail, I think it's possible to do, and I think it would be more in character with the original to have some kind of color. So I just wanted to make that one last.
As American Colonial Revival, you have white and you have blue, just need a red door, red, white, and blue.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
All right, any other comments? So it's sounding like everyone's liking it and that it's here for design and final, but it seems like the only thing missing is the spec for the light. So if it gets design approval and then final on consent, if someone wants to make that. And then what do
Before
we
you
need?
make that motion, will you make a motion accepting the memo to the Secretary of Interior Standards?
All right, so let's first start with that motion. Who wants to make a motion to accept it based on the Secretary of
Make that
Interior?
motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Under discussion. All right, we have a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll take the roll call vote. Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, and now for.
I'll make a motion for project design approval and final approval with the request that the applicant come back to consent with cut sheets on the light fixtures that are used on the exterior of the building. And
So one quick thing on that, I think that would be project design approval to be coming back for final on consent.
all right,
Because otherwise we can't,
give it
final.
project design approval, come back to consent for final approval with the request that cut sheets on the light fixtures for the exterior be provided, and if there is further thinking on the exterior door color, that front door color, that be revealed to us as well.
All right, and then you're going to need to make project compatibility findings and major alteration findings.
All right. I will
Major alterations.
deal with the major alterations to an historic resource. One, the exterior alterations are being made to restore the historic resource to its original or better appearance in order to substantially aid its preservation or enhancement as a historic resource. And the exterior alterations are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. And the design of the project is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to the location of the project within the city. The design of the project is compatible with the desirable architectural qualities and characteristics which are distinctive of Santa Barbara and the neighborhood. And the project is its size, mass, bulk, height, and scale are appropriate for its location in its neighborhood. And the design of the project is appropriately sensitive to there are no landmarks in the area
Except for itself.
And the design of the project does not compromise established public vistas. And the residential project will include an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping.
All right.
And
think
we've been there.
that's it. Yeah. That was a lot.
That's a lot to me to remember,
You had
yes.
to do a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got and then so that's the motion. So then maker of the motion and then second. Who was the seconder, or was there? You, Commissioner Jordan. You agree with all those?
Yes.
All right. So we have a motion and a second under discussion. Any discussion? Going once, going twice. All right. Let's have a roll call vote.
Thank you. I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Nice work.
I have a question for the applicant.
And then, okay, yeah, just 1 second, though. So this motion is appealable within 10 days to city council. All right, go ahead, your question.
As an applicant, did you find dealing with us to be onerous or overly time-consuming, inappropriate from the standpoint of what we do? I mean, I've been reading in the paper that sometimes landmarks is not appreciated, and because we take too long, and I just wondered if we took too long. Be honest.
You've already got approval, so you're fine.
Over the past 30 years, I've come and gone, and you're all new faces to the group that was here back in the early 90s, and the process is project dependent. So I would caution any applicant that maybe to get some feedback from the planners prior to setting an expectation that it'll either be easy or difficult. I found that this one had some challenges, but beyond those challenges, the process has been very, very straightforward and very smooth. So I think it's really more project dependent than it is the system at large. So I don't have any suggestions to make it simpler, other than you've got a lot of very difficult architectural conundrums in the city that need to be worked out, and they're not all as straightforward as this one was.
Well, I think it's also fair to say that you were really amenable and you came well
Yeah,
prepared.
yeah.
We've had applicants who were neither, which makes things much more difficult for us.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They were drawing with the wrong side of the pencil.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right. All right, and now with our one big giant item, we're adjourned.
Thank you.